Someone in the GC just said, "No way." Not loud, not joking, just sitting there. And the thing is, they didn't type that because they were confused. They typed it because something finally clicked. Because you didn't guess this. You saw it coming, way before the shift, before the silence, before people started moving different and pretending nothing changed. You noticed it early. The small delays, the off timing, the way words stopped matching behavior, things most people scroll past. You stayed on, and now it's catching up to them. That's why the energy changed, because it's one thing to be right once. People brush that off. But when you're right before things even happen, that's when it gets uncomfortable. That's when people stop laughing and start thinking. How did you know? When did you figure it out? Were you watching this the whole time? Yeah, you were, but not in the way they think. You weren't watching people, you were watching patterns. And patterns don't panic. Patterns don't lie. People do. That's why you stayed quiet, because explaining it early would have made you sound crazy. And now it already happened. Now they're the ones replaying your words, going back through the chat, reading your message again, trying to find where you slipped, trying to convince themselves it was just luck. But it wasn't. It was attention, the kind that doesn't rush, the kind that doesn't need to speak early. You let things unfold, and now you're just confirming. That's what makes it heavy. Not noise, not reactions, just quiet accuracy. And that kind of presence, it changes how people move around you. Because now they're thinking twice. Now they're choosing words carefully, holding back a little more. Not because you said anything, but because they don't know how much you already understand. And that uncertainty, that's pressure. You don't need to add to it. You don't need to explain yourself. That moment, that no way, that was enough. Because now they've seen it, not heard it, not imagined it, seen it. So stay where you are, calm, observing, unrushed. Let them sit with it. Let them wonder. Because the next time something shifts, you won't be reacting. You'll already know. And that's the part they're not ready for. Because while they're still processing what already happened, you're already ahead of the next shift. You're not waiting for proof anymore. You're not sitting around hoping things reveal themselves. You've seen enough patterns to understand how people move before they even realize they've made a decision. That hesitation in their tone, that slight delay before they respond, that random change in energy they think nobody noticed. You noticed, not because you're paranoid, but because you're present. And presence like that, it builds something most people don't have. Certainty. Not loud certainty, not arrogant certainty. Just quiet, grounded knowing. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't argue. The kind that just waits. Because you've learned something they haven't. People repeat themselves. Different faces, different situations, same patterns. That's why nothing really surprises you anymore. Disappointment? Maybe. But surprise? No. You've already mapped out the possibilities before they even step into them. And that's why you move differently now. Slower, more intentional, less reactive. Because reacting is for people who are still trying to figure things out. You're not. You're confirming every small shift, every slight inconsistency, every moment where something feels just a little off. It adds up, and you don't ignore it. That's what separates you. Most people feel it and brush it away. You feel it, and you remember. You track it, not obsessively, not emotionally, just accurately. And accuracy over time, It turns into awareness. And awareness, that's where the distance begins. Because once you see clearly, you can't go back to pretending. You can't laugh at the same things. You can't trust the same way. You can't move blindly just to feel comfortable. You start choosing differently who you respond to, what you engage with, when you speak, and when you don't. And that silence, again, it becomes heavier, not empty, calculated. Because now, when you don't react, it means something. People feel it. They sense that you're not just quiet. You're observing, measuring. And that makes them uneasy, because deep down, they know you're not missing anything. You're just choosing what deserves your attention, and most things don't. That's the shift they can't explain. Why you don't chase conversations anymore. Why you don't rush to respond. Why your energy feels controlled. It's not distance, it's clarity. You've seen how things play out, over and over again. So now, you let people reveal themselves. You let situations unfold without forcing outcomes, because you already understand something they don't. Time exposes everything, and patience just speeds it up in your favor. So while they're still reacting, still explaining, still trying to adjust the narrative, you're already past it, already detached from what they're just beginning to notice. And that's why it keeps happening. That moment, that no way, it won't be the last. Because once you train your mind to recognize patterns instead of chasing noise, you stop being surprised by outcomes. You start expecting them. An expectation like that, it doesn't come from guessing. It comes from experience, from watching, from learning, from staying quiet long enough to actually see what's real. So let them question it, let them doubt it, let them try to explain it away so they can feel comfortable again. It doesn't change anything. You've already crossed that line, the one where things stop being random and start making sense. And once you're there, you don't go back, you don't unsee it, you don't unlearn it, you just move forward with a different kind of awareness, a quieter one, a sharper one, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Because when the next moment comes, and it will, you won't hesitate. You won't second guess. You won't need confirmation. You'll just recognize it. Like you always do. Like you always do. There's a moment right after that, a quiet shift most people miss, where everything slows down, not around you, inside you. Because once recognition becomes natural, reaction becomes unnecessary. You stop chasing clarity and start operating from it. That's why your timing feels different now. You don't jump in early anymore. You don't rush to correct people. You don't interrupt outcomes just to prove a point. You let things reach their edge. Because you've realized something most people never do. Truth doesn't need interference. It reveals itself best under pressure. So you step back. Not out of fear, not out of doubt. Out of understanding. You've seen how people behave when they think no one is paying attention. You've seen how quickly loyalty bends when comfort is at risk. You've seen how narratives change when reality starts closing in. And instead of reacting to it, you let it unfold. That's what gives you that edge they can't explain. You're not forcing anything anymore. You're allowing people to speak longer than they should. Allowing situations to stretch far enough that the truth can't hide inside them anymore. And when it finally surfaces, you're not surprised. You're just confirmed. That calm confirmation, it's heavy because it comes without emotion, no shock, no anger, no need to confront. Just a quiet internal nod. There it is. That's the part they feel, even if you never say a word. Because energy like that doesn't stay hidden. It shifts how you look at things, how you listen, how long you stay silent before responding. Or if you respond at all. And people notice, not immediately, but eventually, they start picking up on the fact that you don't react the way you used to. That certain things don't move you anymore. That certain behaviors don't confuse you anymore. And that realization, it unsettles them, because now they understand. You're not playing the same game. You're not caught in the moment like they are. You're looking at the structure behind it, the pattern beneath it. And once you see that layer, everything becomes predictable. Not easy, not comfortable, but predictable. Which means you stop asking, what just happened? And start asking, what happens next? That question alone, it changes everything. Because now you're not stuck in reaction. You're positioned ahead of it. You start preparing quietly, adjusting without announcing it, creating distance before it's even needed, and from the outside, it looks effortless, like you just knew. But it wasn't instant. It was built. Through every moment, you chose to observe instead of react. Every time you trusted that small feeling instead of ignoring it. Every time you stayed silent when speaking early would have ruined the clarity. That's how this forms, not overnight, but permanently. And once it's there, it doesn't turn off. You walk into conversations differently. You read between lines without trying. You notice what's missing, not just what's being said. And that's when the real separation happens. Not because you're trying to stand apart, but because you simply can't unsee what others are still blind to. So you keep moving the same way. Steady, unrushed, unaffected by surface-level noise. Because you understand something deeper now. Most outcomes aren't sudden. They're built quietly, long before they arrive. And you've trained yourself to catch them early. Which means when the next shift begins, and it already is, in ways they haven't noticed yet, you won't need time to process it. You won't need space to figure it out. You'll recognize it instantly and move accordingly. And move accordingly. There's a discipline in that, a kind most people never develop. Not the discipline of forcing actions, but the discipline of not acting when everything around you is pushing you to. Because pressure reveals more than comfort ever could. And you've learned to let pressure do the talking. You don't interrupt it. You don't soften it. You don't step in to make things easier for people who are slowly exposing themselves. You let it build. You let it tighten. You let it reach that point where whatever is hidden can't stay hidden anymore. That's when things get clear, not because you asked for answers, but because the situation couldn't hold the lie together anymore. And when that moment hits, you don't react. You don't feel the need to say, I knew it. You don't look around for validation. You just take note, adjust, and continue. That's the difference. Most people treat clarity like a victory. You treat it like information, something to use, something to refine your next move. Because this was never about being right. It was about seeing accurately and moving without hesitation when it counts. That's why you don't get stuck anymore. You don't sit in confusion. You don't replay things endlessly, trying to understand what went wrong. You already understand the structure. You already see where it started shifting. So instead of questioning it, you reposition quietly, without announcement, without explanation, and that quiet repositioning. That's where your control comes from. Because while others are still reacting to what just happened, You've already adapted to what's coming next. That's why your presence feels different now. There's no urgency in you, no rush to prove, no need to chase closure. You're not looking for answers from people anymore. You're reading them from behavior. And behavior, it's always honest in the long run, even when words aren't. So you give it time, you let people speak, you let them move freely, because the more space they have, the more they reveal. And you don't interfere with that process. You observe it, piece by piece, moment by moment, until the full picture forms on its own. That's when your decisions become effortless, not easy, but clear. Because you're no longer deciding based on emotion. You're deciding based on patterns that have already repeated themselves enough times to remove doubt completely. And once doubt is gone, hesitation disappears with it. That's why your movements feel precise now. Not rushed, not delayed, just timed. Exactly when they need to be. Nothing extra, nothing forced. And that level of timing, it changes outcomes. It keeps you out of situations that would have drained you before. It pulls you away before things collapse. It positions you where things actually align. All without noise. All without needing to explain anything. Because the truth is, you're not navigating blindly anymore. You're reading the current beneath the surface. The part most people don't even realize exists. And once you start moving with that awareness, everything shifts. Your expectations change. Your tolerance changes. Your standards become sharper. You stop accepting confusion as normal. You stop entertaining inconsistency. You stop ignoring what's clearly in front of you just to maintain comfort. Because comfort, it doesn't guide you anymore. Clarity does, and clarity doesn't negotiate. It shows you exactly what something is, not what you want it to be. So you move accordingly, every time. No second guessing, no overthinking, just alignment between what you see and how you respond to it. That's what they felt when they typed "no way." Not just surprise, recognition. A quiet realization that you're not operating on the same level of awareness anymore. And that gap, it only grows from here. Because you're not slowing down. You're not going back to reacting. You're not turning off what you've trained yourself to see. If anything, you're getting sharper, more precise, more selective, more controlled with where your attention goes. Because now you understand. Attention is everything. Where you place it determines what you see, and what you see determines how you move. So you guard it. Carefully, intentionally. You don't waste it on noise. You don't scatter it across things that don't matter. You direct it where it actually counts. And that's why you keep recognizing things early. That's why you keep staying ahead. Not because you're trying to be, but because you've built the awareness to naturally be there. So when the next moment comes, when the next shift starts forming beneath the surface, you won't need confirmation. You won't need time. You'll see it for what it is, before anyone else even realizes it exists.